So, the Seiko Turtle. It's a watch that a lot of people have been curious about, especially this Patty edition, but we'll get to the special edition part later. But the Turtle itself seems to be being positioned as a potential replacement for the SKX as the base level non-monster dive watch from Seiko. It does carry the Prospex logo, so it's part of their Prospex line, but it's meant to resemble a earlier edition of Seiko watches, the original Turtle, which was produced during the Vietnam War and kind of attracted a lot of the early American market for dive watches from Seiko. That was popular among servicemen. It was available at a lot of overseas assignments in Asia at the time. So it's definitely something that people have been after for a long time. We'll get some of the specifications out of the way. It is a 200 meter water resistant dive watch, ISO certified. The diameter measured by me is 44.5 millimeters. Lug to lug is a little over 47.25 millimeters. Thickness is 13.4 millimeters, and the weight of the watch, as far as the head of the watch itself, I didn't actually weigh the head of the watch, but the total weight with this Super Jubilee, which is pretty similar in weight to the stock bracelet, is 170 grams, which is pretty hefty. It's much heavier than the SKX. So it definitely is a wearable watch. I have a little bit under a 7-inch wrist. Quick wristwatch check. I have on a Timex Waterbury. I'm going to take that off real quick and do a wrist shot so you can get an idea of how it wears. That's something I get asked a lot because a lot of us have smaller wrists, and this is a pretty chunky watch. So here it is on my just under 7-inch wrist. As it focuses, there we go. Pretty comfortable. Takes up almost all of my wrist, but it definitely doesn't feel uncomfortably large. It's pretty thick, but fits under my utility uniform cuff pretty easily, and definitely something that's relatively comfortable. So it is wearable. The movement is a 4R36 hacking hand-winding day-date movement based on the 7S architecture, known for decades now by Seiko. Very robust movement, but a lot of people will kind of disparage that as far as movement reliability goes, since it's a very low beat movement, and a lot of people are looking, or not reliability, but I guess cachet, because a lot of people are looking for 28,800 beat per hour or higher movements, and this one only beats at 21,600 beats per hour, so 6 ticks per second, which is a noticeable, let's see if I can get pretty close here, it's a noticeable tick on the second hand. So it's not as smooth, but that'll mean longer service life and more reliability when the friction is higher. So that's good. Mine keeps pretty good time with, I'd say, less than 10 seconds a day. I haven't had it timed officially, but definitely a relatively reliable movement. What else can I say about this watch? I haven't had it too long. It's got a holes case, which I think every watch should come with holes in the lugs. That is just so much easier to change straps, and I tend to like going from NATOs to bracelets and back, depending on the weather and what I'm doing. So definitely appreciate having the holes in the case. Bezel is pretty much the exact same. I haven't checked it against it, but basically the exact same as the SKX. Obviously, probably a slightly different diameter. Bezel action is much stiffer. A little bit of play, but nothing, not like play easy, just if you're torquing it, you can kind of wiggle it a little bit. It basically feels almost exactly like a heavier weight, or a SKX bezel with some like heavier weight grease in it. So it's basically just a slightly tighter version of that. It's not my favorite bezel feel. you know, the SKX has pretty good bezel feel. It's a little loose, but this one's almost a little tight, so it's kind of like they went overboard. Loom on this is pretty good. I don't have any way to do a loom shot right now, but rest assured, it's almost as good as the Monster. If they're both sitting next to each other on the nightstand, it's I mean, I can tell which watch is which, but it's not like there's a noticeable difference. So the crown is at 4 o'clock, just like the SKX. It is, however, a lot smoother than the SKX. It's much easier to take in and out. First position is winding, and second position is day and date, and third position is time setting, as can be seen with the hack. So all in all, it really just feels like a slightly larger and slightly more refined SKX, except for the bezel. The loom pip on the bezel is just as crappy as the loom pip on the SKX bezel. Definitely nothing to rely on as far as if you're diving at night. You're definitely going to want to charge it really well before you go in. But yeah, so pros of this watch, as far as the general turtle, it's very wearable, has a lot of wrist presence, but doesn't really feel, even though it has a lot of wrist presence, if you're a kind of guy that likes a conservative watch, I think this will disappear on your wrist more than like a Monster would, even though it's larger. But good loom, good accurate movement, very reliable. The holes case, the ISO rating, all of that is perfect for divers. I like the hands. A lot of people don't like the hands. I think they're perfectly nice, and they're almost the right length. The submitting hand's a little short. I like the counterbalance, lollipop style second hand. I like that the second hand has a little glint to it. There we go. So you can see it easily at night, even without the loom. Yeah, so the Patty version specifically has this metallic blue dial. It's really nice. It's beautiful to look at. It's much brighter. See if I can get an example of this here. This is the SKX. This is also blue. Let me get under some brighter light. But it's a really dark blue. You'd be hard pressed. I'd have to be under sunlight for you to really notice it very well. This one is a much more noticeable blue. But otherwise very similar. The Patty version has the Patty text at the bottom, and then the other major difference is it says Special Edition next to the Seiko on the back. The back is, in my opinion, a huge upgrade over the SKX. See, it's got a very finely machined surface where all the text is put on. It's got the Prospex logo, the serial number. The old one on the SKX has more of a glossy stamped finish, and it's kind of hard to read the text, and it just doesn't look quite as nice. This, brushed machine face on the case back gives it, I don't know, a nice look with the contrast now with the pressed Tsunami dial or Tsunami logo. Strap I have it on is an aftermarket. One major con I have with this watch is the stock strap just doesn't really fit to me. It's 22 millimeter. It's got I'd say like a Seamaster style where the insides of the outer links are polished and the rest of it's brushed. Has the standard Seiko safety with a double deployant, and then the standard dive extension where you pull down, push up. Everything about it is totally functional. It's got micro adjust. Everything is totally functional. It feels good. It's reasonably quiet and squeak. It just doesn't feel quite right to me for this watch. I think 22 millimeter is kind of a large bracelet size anyway. My preference is 20 millimeter, but it's got solid end links. It's the pin and collar like you'd expect. Pretty typical. End link machining's a little coarse. Otherwise, nothing great to say. I like the stock Jubilee on the SKX, so I ordered the Super Jubilee from Strapcode. It's nice. It's got a lot of flex to it. It's not too squeaky. It's screwed construction on the pins or on the links. This one doesn't have a regular dive extension. It has a ratcheting dive extension, which is great, but it adds a lot to the bulk of the clasp. So this is definitely not a watch with this clasp that I'd recommend for someone like using it at a desk all day. This would be a good field clasp. Otherwise, I'd consider maybe if you have the money getting one of these and you really like this clasp, but you don't but you don't want to wear it every day, maybe getting one with a regular clasp and one with a long clasp, because this clasp is so much longer than the stock, Strapcode Super clasp, that it would be, you'd have to add and subtract links every time you changed it. But definitely nice. There's a lot of, I have a review on it, but a lot of nice machining details. It's all very high quality. It's very comfortable. But yeah, I mean, this watch is definitely a solid option if you liked the SKX, but you want something a little bigger, or someday maybe when the SKX is not available. This is certainly it's not like I'd say I prefer one of the other. I think this could probably be better if it was more close to the original size. It's a little bit bigger. So I think if it was a little smaller, it might be more universally appealing, but I do get that a lot of people have a religious obsession with very large watches, and there's nothing inherently wrong with that. So typical Seiko entry-level quality, good case finishing, good crown action, good movement, everything you'd want. I wouldn't hesitate to take this anywhere. I plan to dive with it coming up here, and I think it should be doing a pretty good job. Quick view of some of the packaging. You can get them sometimes, the Patty Special Editions, with the Patty box, but most of them are coming without it. You get the typical hang tags, so you get this guy with the suggested retail price of $525. Usually you can get them for much less than that. And some of the features. And then this one, because it's Patty Special Edition, comes with a Seiko Patty little scuba bottle hang tag. This case comes with, put this back in while I'm here. This case comes with an outer case, and I have the literature, so you get the directions, the warranty, comes with a little card as well, certificate of warranty. And then mine came with some marketing literature. But yeah, so typical Seiko stuff. We'll do a quick comparison shot here with some other watches. So we have, let's zoom in a little bit. The Turtle, the SKX, the Old Faithful, and the Seiko Monster. So, as you can see, let me switch these around so it's more obvious. As you can see, just to compare these two, Monster dimensionally is pretty similar, but it wears a lot smaller because it doesn't have this cushion case. It's more of a traditional case with just short lugs. And the thick bezel makes the dial smaller, so it wears a lot smaller on the wrist. The SKX also wears a lot smaller on the wrist because that's because it is much dimensionally smaller. So the wrist presence is much less. So I wore this watch for a long time, and so I'm used to this. This feels a little larger to me, but as long as I'm not looking at it necessarily, like if I just put it on and forget about it, then it feels totally natural. So this to me is hands down the best entry-level Seiko diver, any of the second generation iterations of it. But this, if you're looking for a more, I don't know, historically traditional Seiko style watch, it's definitely something you're going to love. I'd recommend trying to get a Jubilee for it, because I think that's just more traditional to the Seiko watches. But yeah, if you have any questions, feel free to leave a comment, and I hope you have a great night. Bye.